just love and grace for everyone, for everyone. Yeah, for everyone.
is somebody that has taught you something about your faith? It's just somebody. Somebody. Catherine. Me, and I am your mother. How many of you have a mom who has shared something about their faith? Yeah. Yes. How about you? Mom? Or a big sister? Yeah. Who else? Who else teaches us about our faith? Our parents, our mom and our dad, our families, our brothers and sisters? Anybody else? Anybody else? Yeah. Yes, Dahlia. Your teachers, like your teachers in school or Sunday school teachers? Both teachers in school and Sunday school teachers. Yeah, do you guys have teachers who've taught you about your faith too? Sunday school teachers especially? And even like if you have a really nice teacher, that's someone who can make you feel close to God, right? It doesn't have to be just in church that we learn about God, right? Yeah. How about maybe at camp? Anyone at camp? Yeah, those are all people. Oh, and one last one. Have any of you ever had a friend that has helped you feel close to God, someone your own age? Any of you had a soul friend, we call them? A friend who's helped you feel close to God? What do you think? Yeah? That's pretty cool, isn't it? So today what I'm going to ask you to do is go back to that table that's right back there, right by Mr. Justo, and you can make a card for someone who has showed you about your faith and just say thank you to them for helping you to grow in faith. Okay? And we're going to pray, and then you guys can go do that, all right? Loving God, thank you so much for bringing us friends and teachers who will show us about you and make us feel close to you. We pray this in your holy name. Amen. Thanks, guys.
Down inside, I see it coming alive.
before I read our passage for today, I see some heads nodding. That's really good. Timothy and Paul had a mentor-mentee relationship, just like you guys. Paul was the mentor, Timothy was the mentee, which is kind of cool. So I want you to bring to mind, if any of you have a person in your life or people in your life who have been mentors to you or who have been spiritual friends or soul friends to you. So just kind of think about that person as we go ahead and read from Acts 16, 1 through 3. This is when Paul first recruited Timothy to ministry. Paul went on also to Derbe and to Lystra, where there was a disciple named Timothy, the son of a Jewish woman who was a believer, but his father was a Greek. He was well spoken of by the believers in Lystra and Iconium. Paul wanted Timothy to accompany him. And as the book of Acts goes on, and as the letters to Timothy also tell us, this relationship between Paul and Timothy continued for quite some time. It was really an apprenticeship. Now, of course, in ancient times, people typically used apprenticeships to pass on their skills. If you were a baker, you would have a child, or you might even take on a young person from the community, and you teach them how to bake. It worked out well because the kid learned how to bake, but also as you got older, you had someone to lift and heft those heavy bags of flour. It actually became one of those situations where people could lean on one another and really help one another out in that relationship. Even though we, of course, have formal education these days, really internship continues to be a big part of what we do. We know, especially, I'm going to pick on Casey since he's right there, a lot of students will spend the summer working in a laboratory if they're in the sciences or in applied mathematics, and they'll do an internship. That's also true in business, right? A lot of us will bring in summer interns into our place of business. It's certainly true in ministry. We're expected to not only study Greek and Hebrew, but have a time of supervised learning. So internships are still with us. And so I am going to ask Steve Peterson to describe our mentorship program as part of confirmation here at Central and show a picture of everybody's feet from our first confirmation retreat. There you are. You can pick out your shoes. They look a little whiter than they did earlier. And we just, we hold, that's like the
both of
battery
them.
pack for the TV.
Thanks, Deborah. So the confirmation program, Deborah did quite a bit of work to redesign a little bit this year. It basically maps out along three main themes or sections: belonging, behaving, and believing. And Fritz and I get to do some activities, projects together that map to those three things. So for the belonging, there's a mission project that is engaged in the community. For behaving, there's a more inward-focused church service mission project. And then for believing, something we've done actually for a number of years in confirmation is to go to a worship service for a worship tradition that is not our own. So we, in addition, there's a few other assignments. There's some journaling stuff. So Fritz and I both had to go through the book of Mark and pick out within each chapter, something we thought was really cool or great, and then something that was kind of, hey, what's this about? There's the prayer journal, which is sometimes called the Happy Crappy Journal. And then the confirmand, Fritz in this case, has to do some stuff with 10 services to kind of get a sense of what our worship is about. And Deborah had put forth this notion from Soren Kierkegaard that our worship is a form of theater in which we're presenting to God our love of God in a sort of a theatrical way. I'll get back to that when I talk about an experience we had together. And then Fritz has to do a faith expression. So overall, I'll just talk about some of the projects that we did together. The inward service, Fritz came over when some of the guys from the church came to pull pork in preparation for the Rally Day picnic. And then Fritz did a little public service ad of that I thought was masterful, of why you should consider going and ripping apart animal flesh as a show of your love of God.
The child of two vegetarians, right.
Well done. We went on the Friday midnight run to deliver food and clothing to the homeless in New York. And Fritz primarily did this, but there was a design of the worship service from last Sunday as Fritz's faith expression. This is sort of a departure of the way it's been in the past. It's always been a written, I believe, it was basically a three-part credo that everyone would sort of formulaically write out. And now there's a lot more room for self-expression and things that are tailored to and decided by the confirmand. So I'm going on a little bit too long. Let me talk about what this has meant to me. It's similar to, I used to say I like to go fishing because just doing it gets me out in the most beautiful places. Doing these activities and doing them with Fritz gets me out of the rut, out of just viewing church as something I go to most but not all Sundays and do the same way each time. I'll use a specific, I'd never done the midnight run, going to the city, meeting homeless people. That was a complete eye-opener. And to do that with teenagers who are very engaged and watching them bonding with people on the street in New York, who previously I had this preconceived notion as to what they were like, all of which were kind of driven aside by the reality, and especially made vivid by seeing Fritz and the other kids talking to folks and getting to know them on their turf. We also, for the worship service, ever since I was a kid, my friend Chris told me that there was a Coptic pope who lived in Egypt. I was intrigued by this. And it was something I always wanted to do, is just to check out what is Coptic Egyptian Orthodox worship like. Well, how would I ever have done this if I didn't have someone up for it, like Fritz, who is willing to go? We went to Coptic Easter a couple of weeks ago, Saturday night. We're total lightweights. We only went for 2 hours, not the full 4 or 5. But
traditionally they go till dawn.
So it was a deeply moving experience. The lights were all out. They're knocking on the door of the wall that separates the Holy of Holies from the rest in the dark, and suddenly the doors are thrown open and the lights come up, and there's a procession with incense and song and chanting, and very Arabic flavored chanting. And I found myself really completely moved. And I got to do Easter twice this year. It was a rebirth. And how would I ever have an experience like that if it weren't for this program and the opportunity to participate? So thanks, Fritz.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I really like what you said about how doing it with a new person, doing this as a mentor really got you out of a rut and let you see things fresh. What I asked each of our confirmation students to think about is something that they did with their mentor this year that helped them grow in faith. And so you guys are welcome to just pass the microphone and share what that was. Pilar or Fritz, who wants to go first? Okay, excellent. We'll let Pilar go first. And just say your name and who your mentor is.
Okay, so my name is Pilar Kundi, and my mentor is Mrs. Haneke. So a couple months ago, we helped out with the Living Nativity, and so did Gretchen. And so we helped kids do arts and crafts, and it was really fun, and I thought it was cool that my mentor had us come and do it with us, because she helped me be a a mentor to the younger kids, not just a mentor for me.
My name is Gretchen Cadronell, and my mentor is also Mrs. Haneke. And something that was really nice that we did together was this Friday night we went to the Temple Sinai, the synagogue in Summit, and we attended a service there. And I just thought it was a really good experience because it was similar in some ways to what we do here, but also very different. And just having my mentor there and being able to experience that together was a really cool experience.
Hi, I'm Josh. My mentor is Adam, and what we did that was probably the most influential thing that we did this year was we went on the midnight run with Fritz and Mr. Peterson. And it was really, really cool to see the people. I didn't think they'd be very nice, but they really were, and they told us stories. And it was awesome because we got to see that, like, they just weren't what we thought they'd be, and yeah.
Okay, so the experience that helped me do that the best was probably going to the Coptic service with Mr. Peterson. It was really cool to see a different faith tradition, especially one as unique as the Coptic one, and that really helped me grow closer to God.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, guys. So this picture here is a picture of something called an Ebenezer. You know that thing that we sing about in the song? An Ebenezer is a pile of stones that people raise up when they have an experience with God's presence. And at the beginning of confirmation, each of our confirmands took a stone, and actually the mentors did too. It grew a little bit from this. And we put the stones together, and we said to God that we were going to give some time this year, and we asked God to be present to us. And I think one thing that's really true is in that relationship with our mentors, especially by spending time together, we can see that people's faith really develops. There's a great saying that faith is caught, not taught. And that we really do kind of learn faith or develop or nurture our faith in relationship with other people. So going back to Paul and Timothy, by the end of the story, Timothy has his own ministry. He has his own thing that he's doing in the church, his own relationship with God and his own response to it. It's still something that he shares with Paul, but it's definitely his own. And so I asked our confirmands to think about what they would be doing as they strike off sort of on their own. You still get to hang out with your mentors, I promise. In fact, you should make dates for coffee like right now. And definitely see each other at church and other things. But I was just wondering, through this year, what are you planning to do kind of next? What's your next step?
Okay, so I'm going to become a youth deacon.
Excellent. Woo-hoo!
In church, I'm just gonna go more often and try to help, like, kids with Sunday school and stuff.
Next year, I think it would be a really fun opportunity to help out in the nursery.
I like to sing a lot, so I think I'm just going to keep on singing because that's when I feel close to God.
That is so beautiful. And so we can see that just like Paul and Timothy, that our young people are engaged in ministry on their own. I can't imagine a more beautiful and special way to share faith. Thank you guys so much for sharing your confirmation year with us and sharing your faith journey.